Today, Rodeo is going to teach us about transgender rights and the history of the LGBTQ community. Oftentimes now when we think about transgender people and LGBTQ people, we think about glittering parades, bright floats, and parties in the street. And that is part of our community legacy, but it's not everything. It's a frightening time to be non-binary or transgender in this country because of all of the attacks that are happening politically, nationally, and in communities. But it's important that we stick together and pull each other forward, because history has always shown us that when we stand together as a community, when we don't leave anybody behind, is when we are able to truly live our best authentic lives in community. Now more than ever, it's so important that we stick together, because sometimes the community we make, the families we make, are all that we have. And it can be really difficult right now for us to keep hope, but it's so important that we do, even when it might feel like we are going back in time and we're losing rights that we had. It's important that we don't lose hope and that we continue to be strong. The path forward isn't always going to be easy. It's going to involve lots of twists and turns and winding roads as we fight for equality, and we keep shining as brightly as we can in every opportunity that we have, because the lives that we have are magical and wonderful, regardless of what any politician says. Behind Rodeo is the Stonewall Inn in New York City, which is considered to be the birthplace of the modern LGBTQ community globally. It's important to remember when we think about LGBTQ history and rights, that the rights we have today really stand on the shoulders of transgender people, and particularly transgender women of color, who pushed globally us all forward towards equality. Though today Pride festivities are an exciting party, it's important to remember they began as a protest. They were not just about dancing in the streets. They were about standing up against police brutality, standing up for our rights, and demanding that we be treated equally. Now, when we look back at history, when we read about history, these times are frightening. It feels like every time we read the news, there's more rights being threatened to be taken away. But we have to remember, we need to be brave like those folks that came before us, who said, that's enough, no more. We are not going to be treated this way. We are going to stand up, not only for ourselves, but for our entire community. The bars, like Stonewall, were places where community could come together and gather. For many LGBTQ people, these bars were one of the only safe places where they could spend time in community. There was music, there was dancing, and it's really important to recognize the importance of these community spaces when we look at the history of the modern LGBTQ community and think about how these kinds of cultural spaces need to be protected and recognized when we look at the LGBTQ community throughout history. Something that we can all do is not get stuck in this circular cycle of fear. As terrifying as these moments are, it's really important that we continue to focus. We want to think about how far our LGBTQ communities have come, and remember that we can overcome anything that is thrown at us. The world might be scary right now, but we can get around all of that. And together we can fly when we stand together, work together with our allies to make sure that everybody is able to move forward into a brighter tomorrow. Sometimes the wins that we have are really small, and sometimes they're really big, but it's important that we high five and celebrate each of the little victories that we have as we move through the twists and turns that we are faced. We overcome challenges and we stand together in community. Don't forget to think back on how far we've come. These times are scary, but one small act can make a huge difference. That first brick that was thrown that began the Stonewall Rebellion, that brick, just like that, flying, is what started a whole revolutionary movement. We stand on the backs of transgender people who came before us, and we must continue in their honor to continue to push forward our community. And remember that no matter what any government official says, we are here, we are real, and we're not going anywhere.